Presented by Listen Headlines, latest world news from trusted sources.
August 30th, 12:23 America, New York. Ida is no longer a hurricane, but it continues to leave a path of destruction. Here's a look at scenes in some parts of Louisiana. Low bandwidth? Try CNN's Light Site, Photos, How You Can Help.
Washington Post World, August 30th, 12:18 America, New York. The world should unfreeze Afghanistan's reserves and pour in aid to rebuild the country, Russia says. Russia's ban on the Taliban as a terrorist group has not stopped Moscow officials from stepping in to support it. Washington Post World, August 30th, 12:14 America, New York. Afghanistan Live Updates. Taliban promises U.S. safe passage for some fleeing Afghans after August 31st pullout. Tens of thousands of Afghans have fled since the Taliban seized Kabul, but the Islamist group's guards have also used violence to intimidate people from leaving. Washington Post World, August 30th, 12:14 America, New York. Rockets hit neighborhood near Kabul airport amid U.S. pullout. Witnesses say rockets have struck a neighborhood near Kabul's international airport amid the ongoing U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. Washington Post World, August 30th, 12:13 America, New York. Puerto Rico to limit alcohol sales, gatherings amid pandemic. Puerto Rico's governor has announced new restrictions to fight a rise in COVID-19 cases, including the closure of certain private businesses and banning alcohol sales after midnight. Washington Post World, August 30th, 12:12 America, New York. Tropical storm Nora facing, after leaving 1 dead, 7 missing. Tropical storm Nora is dropping heavy rains along the Gulf of California after weakening from a hurricane that set off floods and landslides on Mexico's Pacific coast, caused havoc in Puerto Vallarta and left at least 1 dead and 7 missing. Washington Post World, August 30th, 12:01 America, New York. The U.S. reckons with defeat in Afghanistan. Many of the same doyens of the Washington establishment who are now outraged that the Taliban is back in power have been less vocal about the failures and shortcomings of the 2 decades spent keeping the militants at bay. Washington Post World, August 30th, 12:01 America, New York. Return to school filled with uncertainty in Mexico. With bottles of gel, temperature checks and wide-open windows, a new school year has begun for millions of children in Mexico.
World CBS News, com. August 30th, 11:56 America, New York. Japan's Paralympics joy marred by COVID anxiety. Surging coronavirus cases have filled ICU beds, forcing Japanese patients to recuperate at home in a reality that seems totally detached from the glory of the games.
Mirror World News, August 30th, 11:56 America, New York. Mom threw newborn baby out with the rubbish in plastic bag after giving birth in toilet. The 25-year-old woman gave birth to the little girl in her shared flat before dumping the body in an outside bin, but when her flatmates saw what happened they took her to hospital and she was later arrested for negligent murder.
August 30th, 11:54 America, New York. Tropical storm Kate develops in the Atlantic. Tropical Depression 10 has strengthened and has been given the name Tropical Storm Kate, the National Hurricane Center said Monday.
New York Times World News, August 30th, 11:53 America, New York. Band of robbers tie hostages to cars in Brazilian city. The assault was the latest launched by well-trained and heavily armed bands on robbers targeting small cities at night. RT World News, August 30th, 11:53 America, New York. WHO delivers first medical shipment to Taliban-controlled Afghanistan after opening air bridge. The World Health Organization, WHO, has opened an air bridge with Afghanistan, the health agency said on Monday, allowing for the delivery of medical supplies to the country for the first time since the Taliban seized control. Washington Post World, August 30th, 11:50 America, New York. 3 Afghan children poisoned by mushrooms picked in Poland. Officials in Poland say 3 Afghan children staying at a refugee center fell ill after eating poisonous mushrooms picked in a forest, with 2 of them in intensive care. New York Times World News, August 30th, 11:50 America, New York. Unvaccinated U.S. visitors could face new restrictions on travel to Europe. The European Union's leaders removed the United States from a safe list. Individual countries in the bloc are not obliged to follow suit, however. Passengers at Barajas Airport in Madrid in June.
Fox World News. August 30th. 11:49 America, New York. Australia to end COVID-0 policy. Not a sustainable way to live. Australia is set to end its COVID-0 policy after Prime Minister Scott Morrison determined that the country's approach is not sustainable in the face of the more infectious COVID-19 Delta variant.
BBC News World. August 30th. 11:46 America, New York. COVID. EU set to impose travel restrictions on US as cases rise. The European Union is set to recommend barring American travelers as US hospital admissions peak.
Wall Street Journal World News. August 30th. 11:44 America, New York. EU recommends halting non-essential travel from US over COVID-19. The European Union's travel list, which is reviewed every 2 weeks, isn't binding on member states, but it has generally set the pattern for who can visit the bloc.
Washington Post World. August 30th. 11:27 America, New York. Robbers escape with hostages atop cars in Brazil bank heist. Bank robbers armed with explosives and high-powered rifles plunged a city in São Paulo state's interior into terror, taking civilians hostage and even putting some on their cars while making their escape.
World CBS News, com. August 30th. 11:10 America, New York. Restaurant apologizes for offending people with black man in ad. Russian sushi chain boss says online threats from a movement promoting traditional values forced him to remove the ad, and he's sorry for offending the public with our photos.
Time. August 30th. 11:05 America, New York. Airbnb co-founder calls offering temporary accommodation to 20,000 Afghan refugees an easy call. Amid the continuing turmoil in Afghanistan, which has created thousands of refugees seeking evacuation, the CEO of the U.S. lodging marketplace Airbnb tweeted that the company would begin housing 20,000 Afghan refugees globally for free, starting August.
RT World News. August 30th. 11 o'clock America, New York. WHO says third vaccine dose. Not a luxury. Despite earlier calling for moratorium on COVID-19 booster shots. A third vaccine dose is essential to protect the most vulnerable from COVID-19, Hans Kluge, the head of WHO Europe, has said, contradicting the UN health body's earlier calls for a moratorium on boosters amid global jab shortages.